Welcome to the Corporate Detox podcast. I'm your host, Amanda McWhorter. I'm a corporate dropout, recovering people pleaser and perfectionist turned burnout recovery coach. If you are sick of the corporate roller coaster ride and ready to step into a life you love, this is the podcast for you. Hey there, and welcome back to the Corporate Detox podcast. I'm your host, Amanda McWhorter, and I am thrilled today to be joined by my guest, Amy Hager. Amy is an organic marketing mentor and a co-founder of the Content Personality Club. She uses her years of experience and expertise to help service-based business owners around the world grow businesses that they love at the joyful business revolution. Amy's yoga instructor once said that she has lived 12 lives already because she has had so many experiences. And today I'm so excited for you to hear all about Amy and her own corporate detox journey. Amy, welcome. Oh my gosh. I am so excited about our episode today. I say that every episode because I love the mission of this podcast, but I can tell you, I'm just excited to hear about your corporate detox journey and just to learn more about you and how you serve the world.
Definitely. Well, I'm Amy Hager. I'm the organic marketing mentor over at the Joyful Business Revolution. And how I landed here, if you ask my yoga instructor, I've lived 12 lives at this point. And so it definitely is like a multi-layered process of kind of how I got to where I was, or where I am now. But I've not necessarily had a corporate career, but I did work in the nonprofit association space for a little over 16 years now. And what really led me to wanting to go down this path of entrepreneurship and to really more be on the consulting side and helping people in their businesses was I realized that my ability to help more than one organization is a unique ability. Not everybody can do that. And I didn't realize that until maybe a little bit later in life. But two, working in the association and nonprofit space, we're governed by a board. Having 12 bosses with individual agendas, sometimes that really leads you to burn out. And so I just kind of had hit my breaking point of where I didn't want to be working with so many people with individual agendas and trying to achieve a singular mission. But I knew if I worked with people with individual agendas to achieve an individual mission, that would work out a lot better for, I would say, my nervous system and my flow. And that's really where I think my talent and my strength lies. So that is when I made the switch, was kind of that last association that I worked with. I was just like, all right, I think this is a time, this is a sign. And I had also been using this tool called the Content Personality Quiz to build out my sales and marketing teams. And so because I was such a super user of it, I was like, well, I'm going to go to the creator and ask if I can work with her. And so that's how I left. I just kind of went for it, asked for what I thought I needed. And fast forward almost 4 years later now, I don't think I would ever go back to corporate. I don't think I could ever work for one single organization ever again.
Okay, so I sat on a board for 12 years. I don't know. It might have been longer. That it was forever. It was like a lifetime.
I was like, geez, we need to work on those bylaws.
Oh my gosh. Let me tell you, and it's so true because the more I became, personal with the team there, I could see that they were trying to make everyone happy, right? Like everybody really had their vision of what the organization needed to be.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, that really hits home. And I love that on this podcast, we don't just have guests in the corporate space
Mm-hmm.
because it's a lot of the same experiences,
Yep. Yeah.
right? So thank you for bringing the nonprofit background
Yeah.
in here today.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think too, like even as I'm in my own volunteer, I volunteer with my local chamber here and there. I've still kept it very much to like micro experiences, which I think is a very important, successful way to operate an association is to have those micro volunteer association type opportunities. And then the right training needs to happen for a board member to be a board member. And I think, oh, I've been a member of this organization for 20 years. I deserve a seat on the board is no longer how we can look at structuring those organizations. And we really do need to create it almost like a job interview process. And so there were a couple organizations that I got the chance to kind of play with those methodologies and theories with. And I love to see how they're thriving. And there are executive directors and CEOs who are leading organizations through that lens. And it's very, very interesting to see how much more happy the staff is, how much more happy the CEO is, but also how the board operates so differently than other organizations. So it's kind of cool to see this shift. So I still dabble a little bit in the association nonprofit,
Yes.
but I think it really leads to this whole notion that it really made me realize that when we can leverage our strengths in the strengths of the community that is around us, whether it's an association, whether a business owner, or whatever it may be, if we can leverage the strengths of individuals and realize we can't be the strongest at all, and we have weaknesses as well, but my weakness might be your strength. What an amazing like partnership and collaboration that makes. It's not just one person shining, it's two working together to make this amazing thing. So it really taught me and really is the foundation for how I work with people now is let's leverage your strengths and let's let your weaknesses be weaknesses. Let's let them go even.
Yeah.
And you don't need to worry about that stuff. Who knows? Again, we don't know until we dive in. But it's such a different perspective instead of the, when you get those review periods. My poor husband just got done with his review period. He manages a team of 16 developers. And he, bless his heart, but it was like, what weaknesses are you going to improve on over this year? And I was like, what if someone told you none of them? Like, what would you do as their manager or as their boss? He's like, I don't even know. He's like, I'm really glad someone's sassy like you doesn't work for me. But I really think like if we can eliminate that question of how are you going to improve your weaknesses over this next year and really look at, all right, let's evaluate your strengths and what can we do 10% better to leverage those. It's such a different conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. So I came out of grocery retail, and I think one of my big like mind-blowing moments after leaving was seeing how many people in the online space and the entrepreneurial space did personality quizzes, and that's how they would match their team, because
Yeah.
we didn't do that. I mean, like we had restrictions, obviously, like working with the labor union for our hourly people and things like that. Everything went off of like seniority, but there was always this like I want to say like good old boys mindset that like that's how you progressed in the organization, whether you were management or not. And it didn't serve them in the long
Oh,
run. I look at how many talented people that we lost over the years just because they weren't in the right role.
yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. The second to last organization that I left, when the CEO reached out to bring me on board, so I was picked off from another job or whatever, he had said, hey, I realize I'm not the best manager or the best boss. Is that something you can help me with? And I'm like, well, I'm honest. I'm never gonna not tell you what the real situation is. And here are like the top three things to know that I'm mad at you and that you're doing a shitty job. And so we went into the relationship that way. And I was like, wow, this guy's really turning a leaf. Nope, he was not turning a leaf. And I really think he knows that he's a bad manager and he's a bad boss. And so he let me put together the team, and he did agree to like those, I guess, terms and conditions. I was the only one interacting with him. So therefore, at least I got to protect my really amazing team that I built from him. But it still was just, he did not have that visionary, that CEO role that we needed him to be in. And he was the CEO because he had been there 12 or 13 years at that point.
Yeah.
And so when I left, they hired someone who did not set that boundary of they were managing the team, and then he was kind of on this island on his own. And the whole team fell apart within 6 months of me leaving. And it's sad to see those situations. Now, fast forward, this was 2019 when all this fell apart. In 2023, thank God the organization finally realized he can't be managing people. And so they technically demoted him.
Yeah.
And so maybe, it's sad to see someone be demoted, but it just because you've been at an organization or at your career doesn't always necessarily mean that you should be a manager, that you should be
Exactly.
managing people, that you should be speaking on stages, that you should be writing articles. Really, you have a strength. Let's figure out what the strengths are, and let's 10% better that.
Yeah. Mm. So many examples of this in my past. Oh my gosh. And even now in like my role as a burnout recovery coach, I see this a lot. I've gone into organizations and been requested to come help, like come help us because everyone is burning out and we're going to lose the team. And come to find out that, at the end of the day, the leaders in the organization didn't want organizational change, right? So like what I could do is put a band-aid on the situation, but that was not going to help prolong anyone's employment there. It wasn't going to help move the organization forward because there was a lot of blame being placed in places that wasn't necessarily the issue.
Right. Exactly. And I
Yeah.
think that those conversations, those blaming conversations, tend to be the conversations that you have, and not the how does this organization actually make the deep rooted change in its structure that really
Yep.
needs to happen. And so the example that I used about that man is now demoted. When I came into this, it's a micro organization within a larger organization. And all right, I had everybody take what is called the content personality quiz. And it's really, like you said, it's a way to establish what your strength is, especially in creating. And so we were creating product, we were creating marketing, we were creating all of these different outputs and such. What is the best way we should be creating? And so when the CEO took the quiz, he ended up being written, but the way he was creating was always live in person. So he was the one representing our organization at meetings. He was speaking on stages. And the organization, don't get me wrong, was doing pretty well. It was like $750K a year with a 3-person staff. But he was robbing people the wrong way,
Yeah.
showing up in a live in person. So when he came written, I was like, all right, this is a harebrained idea, but you are no longer representing us in meetings. You should no longer be speaking on stages. And we really have got to find these creative outlets for you to do the written work. And so he started to pen articles that were published in different industry publications. Instead of him attending meetings, I would have him write memos to the other departments that needed information from him. And then I would attend the meetings. And when we made that first tiny shift, you could see the larger organization accepting this organization and that function actually like elevating. When I started to speak on stages, people would email him with follow-up questions. and to really dive in deeper, because again, my knowledge was just very surface level. His is very, very deep. So if I gave them the surface level stuff that they needed, that then gave them the opportunity to come up with those deeper questions, which then they would ask him. Or if they would send it to me because they met me, I would say, hey, I'm not the right one to answer this question. Here's so and so. I've included him on this email. He's going to dive into this with you. So when we just even took those two strengths and really figured out how we could play together as one and two in this organization, and then having the other people with me interacting with them, because I was the live in person, he is the written person. That tiny shift just within the organization made it so, so much better. And so in the content personality, there's 5 of them. There's live in person, written, visual, video, audio. And we had someone on the team who was already there before me. They were a visual. So we doubled down on having them put together the newsletters, the websites, the graphics, those visual things that we needed to be sending out in collateral and things along those lines. But it was funny, when I started, he was attending different meetings, not an in-person person. Like, kid would squirm. Like, he just felt so uncomfortable. But because people thought he needed to improve on his weakness of not being able to interact with other people, he should go to these meetings. And so we had a video content personality type that was at the higher level of the organization. So when we needed to pull someone in who could explain something really, really well with just their face and their voice, we would have them do that. And then I hired an audio content personality type, and it was actually a college dropout. This guy was selling cell phones at the mall and hated it. And when we let him call people to make sales, that's really what then turned the organization around, because he was so great at explaining things just with his voice. He didn't need anything else. And I had the written guy template all of his emails that he would send after his phone conversations.
Oh, that's
So he
perfect.
had a bunch of things to choose from that he never had to write. So we really broke down the duties of this organization based off of our creation strengths. And it went from 750 in 18 months, 1.2 million. And none of us loved what we were selling. It was standardized construction contracts. They are not sexy, they are not fun, and I am not a lawyer. But
Wow.
it just goes to show, when you let people thrive in their abilities, look out, like, that's where those shifts really happen.
Yeah. Ugh. Such a good lesson for everyone listening, because maybe you're a leader of people and you know that there are some folks that are really good in other areas and you're not leveraging that. Like, what could that mean to your team, to your organization, to your business if you
Right.
started that, right? Or on the flip side, maybe that's how you are right now. Like, maybe you know that you are doing something that you don't like, and you
Not
could be
good at.
excelling in another area. Yeah. Yeah. So how do you step into that? What advice would you give to people? Like, that might be their scenario. They know this isn't a good fit. I'm miserable.
Oh man, I love that. Very, very beautiful question. Okay. So how I like to gauge this, especially if I'm with a team, but your question was, as an individual, how do I first kind of go through this, right? So there is an exercise that we do at the Joyful Business Revolution, and I'm going to summarize it super quick here because I think you can kind of do it. But if you want more, I'm happy to talk about how you actually do this. So there is a joy line. We all have a joy line. There are things above the joy line and there are things below the joy line. And so what you should be doing is, and I do this for both work or per professional work, business, whatever it is that you are in. And I also do this for personal. I take 2 different sticky notes. I draw a line on a big old board. And anything that I enjoy, I put it above the joy line. Anything I don't enjoy, I put it below the joy line. There's layers deep of this. Above the joy line makes me money, above the joy line spend money, below the joy line spend money, below the joy line makes money. But at least let's just talk about this joy line. So when you get everything listed, and I'm talking like do a major brain dump, like I have cats, so I have to change their cat litter. Cat litter goes below the joy line, but feeding them goes above the joy line because they're so cute when you feed them. When I'm thinking about work things, calling people back, I don't enjoy that. That goes below the joy line. I do love having Zoom conversations. That stays above the joy line for me. So when you can literally take those minute tasks throughout your day and put them above or below the joy line, look what is below the joy line and ask yourself, do I have to be the person executing this task? And if the answer is no, that then facilitates a conversation that you get to have with the team. If your entire team does their own joy above and below joy line exercise, and you find that I don't like returning phone calls, but Johnny on my team does, Johnny can be the one returning phone calls. And what is there something that Johnny is currently doing that he doesn't like doing? Maybe there's someone else on the team who loves to do this. And for you parents out there, golden extra bonus ticket number, whatever you want to call it, do this with your kids and have them break out their chores this way. You will be surprised how many kids like doing dishes or like doing laundry, but the sibling hates doing dishes or hates doing laundry. Just switch. And let the kid who likes to do the dishes, and let the kid who likes to do the laundry. Let them thrive in those strengths. Yeah, eventually they may have to do all the dishes and all the laundry, but at least for now, let it be joyful. Yeah. So I think that's the easiest way to kind of summarize above the joy line, below the joy line. Once you know yours, you can ask your team to do this as well. And then look at this from that big overview look of what am I doing that I don't need to be doing anymore, that someone on my team can maybe do instead, because it brings them joy.
Be willing to change old systems, right? So if you've been on a team and someone is saying, but we've always done it this way, right? Someone in that role, in your role, has always done these things. Be willing to challenge that, because that is how we make organizational change.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when you have, new people come on the team, because people will leave. I mean, if you can have a much higher morale where people feel like they're allowed to thrive and be strong and maybe even be innovative, then I don't think your turnover is obviously not going to be as high. But there is going to be new team members that come on board. And what a great way to welcome a new team member than asking them, all right, what do you enjoy and what don't you enjoy? And what you don't enjoy, we're going to try it and make it so you don't have to do that. And we're going to work as a team to make this experience the most joyful work environment that can happen. And when we find something that is above or below the joy line for everybody, like no one hates doing this. Cat litter, great example. No one loves scooping cat litter. We always then build a ritual around it. So if there's a task that everybody on the team hates doing, if it's a task that you all can do on Monday together at 11 a.m., because then at noon, you all are going to go away and you're going to go have lunch, or maybe we bring lunch in. I don't know. Build a ritual that rewards you for doing the things you absolutely hate doing, because it's going to make it just a little bit better. And showing that you care that much to make it a little bit better goes so, so far.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Such great advice.
We're
Such
doing
great advice.
enjoy things over at the Joyful Business Revolution.
Yeah. I love it.
It is kind of, when you think about the joy board, and again, I'm asking you to do it for your personal life and your professional life, because we technically only live one life. And I think a lot of times we try to keep those things so terribly separate. But if you can share like some of the things that you love and some of the things that you don't love outside of work, that also gives you a chance to bond on other things. And, I think some of the things, I've worked with quite a few moms, like a lot of those kid duties sometimes end up below the joy line. And, maybe they're like, all right, I can't pass this duty off, but then having that conversation with their spouse or with their other children about, all right, this isn't something that I love, but I love this. How can we maybe bring more of this thing that I love into this thing that I don't love? Because when you're able to talk about how to lift each other up on a team, in a family,
Mhm.
anything along those lines, it really does then go to show that you're in it together, highs and lows, and you've got each other's back. And again, it's that word innovation. It's giving you the opportunity to think in a different way. And it may seem so silly, like a chore at home seems ridiculous. But by having that conversation and really framing some joy around it, having that shift of energy in your team or in your home is so, so amazing to see
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. So I want to just talk real quick about this concept when it comes to burnout.
Yeah.
So typically, and my listeners have heard this before, but if someone is in burnout, it's really hard for them at times to find, gratitude for things because of just the state that they're in, right? So I like to flip it when it comes to the work that I do with my clients, and we talk a lot about resentment. And it
Mhm.
relates so much to this in the fact that these are things that fall below that joy line for you,
Yeah.
right? So maybe it's something that you used to enjoy doing, and things are going to change depending on the season of life and what you're doing. And if you find that something has now dropped below that joy line, you're becoming resentful for certain things. Like that is a great place. If you can't offload it, it's a great place to look at like boundaries, like the way you're doing it. Like what is causing that to be so miserable to you, right? Or cause you to burn out. So, yeah, it all kind of goes together. And I love that.
Well, and I think too, we're people. We grow, we have experiences, we
Yeah.
learn, we change. Your joy line, the stuff that's below and above is going to change. And
Yep.
so a really good example is, I try to check in with my joy line at least quarterly, for sure, at least yearly. And for years below the joy line was my expense report, my monthly expense report. I would rather slam my head against the wall than do that stupid expense report. And so I outsourced it, had someone amazing help me do it. She's good at numbers, good at math, thank God, things I'm bad at. And she moved on to a different role in the last few months. So I was like, well, I'm just gonna reabsorb this for now until I figure out again what really is below the joy line for me for where I am right now. And so that way I can make sure I'm bringing the right person back on to support me going forward into this next phase. And you know what? I actually don't mind doing the expense thing anymore. And I think it's because I've built it into a different flow. I have a couple other things that are similar in that mindset. So now I block off a day. I either stay in my pajamas or I go get coffee. And it takes me just a couple hours to kind of knock this sucker out. And then I get the rest of the day to do whatever I want.
Mm.
I'm like, all right. So I basically get a day off because I now do my expense report. And so this new person that I brought on is really, really helping me keep organized with my community management and making sure that people don't fall through the cracks. And so we're building more systems and processes as I'm interacting with more and more people because building relationships is so key to me. But I can't remember every conversation and I don't want to forget people either. So building a way that like feels authentic and true to me. So it's kind of fun to have this thing that I know that I enjoy, but it's probably blocking me from scaling and really doing that 10% more and having someone explore that. And I get to take a day to either sit in my pajamas or go get coffee because I'm doing my own expense reports now. So my joy line, what was above and below, has kind of changed and shifted over the last few years. And that's okay.
Yeah.
We're not the same person that we were last year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're all experiencing different things, right? So, gosh, I love this conversation. So, Amy, tell us more about your business and how you serve the world,
Mhm.
how people can find you. And I know that you have some things coming up too that would be great for our listeners to hear about.
Yeah. So if you go to joyfulbusinessrevolution.com, that's the best way to really obviously find us. I hang out a lot on Facebook. So I'm Amy Hager, AMY, Hager, Hager. But if this conversation about joy and working from a place of strength is really intriguing to you, we have launched this year. We've been doing what we call our Joy Money Retreat for years, and that's in the fall. It's in Vermont, beautiful leaf season. So if you're a leaf peeper, super duper beautiful place to just spend 5 days diving into your business, diving into the personal, and really looking on expanding and growing. But if you don't own your own business and you're like, gosh, how can I bring those little moments of joy into my life? We've launched Joy Camp in July, and we're doing this up in Vermont as well. And it's really a place for adults. It's an elevated summer camp experience for adults where we want to blend, adventures, friends, personal nourishment, and we're actually not going to be doing anything business strategy or nitty-gritty planning. And we really have found when we can bring someone away for a couple of days out of their normal and take that step back and again look at life from that higher view and bring those practical joy moments in your day and actually make joy practical, that's where we see the really, really big shifts happening in people's personal lives and people's work and really elevating that vibration within yourself. But it's super duper hard to do when like you're in it all the time. And so we want to make sure that those who are coming, they're focused on, wanting to really look at themselves through a non-judgmental lens and knowing there's going to be strengths and weaknesses, good and bads, and really knowing that they have a purpose and maybe it's not clear exactly what that purpose is, but they want lightness and they want calm and ease. The other thing too about the way practical joy works is there also needs to be connection. It's really, really hard to do this on your own. It's not something that you can necessarily do every day by journaling, even though journaling is a beautiful activity for self-awareness. We want to make sure that there's people contributing to you as much as you're contributing to them. And that deeper human connection is really, really important at Joy Camp. So Joy Camp is coming up in July up in Vermont. And if you're interested at all, go ahead and reach out to us at thejoyfulbusinessrevolution.com. But if you're just like, gosh, what's the very first baby step for me to get started? I would take that content personality quiz and I would ask anybody else on your team to take that quiz and see what the answers are and see, do you have a lot of one type? Do you have a diverse group? And then look at those duties and maybe do above and below the joy line activity with your team and see, can you, that second half of 2023, turn things around and try things different? And I always say, it's a big playful experiment. Give it a shot for 60, 90 days. And if you go in setting that intention and explaining that to the rest of your team, if it flops, that's not a fail. You tried something different. But what if it flies? And it just opens up more of those opportunities for you and your team to really enjoy what you're doing and what you're bringing to the table. So those would be the big places I think to start is if you're like, gosh, I just practical joy, come join us in Joy Camp. But if you're looking at what is the first baby step that I can do, I would take that content personality quiz and really see what is your content personality type. How are you operating in that type? And then look at your teams too and see how are they all operating.
Yeah. So I will drop links to all of this in the show notes. And first of all, I want to talk about the quiz a little bit because it was so interesting for me. So I took it before we signed on here today. And
Mhm.
mine came back that my content personality is video. And I have been resisting video for a long time
Mhm.
because I was like, I don't want to have to get ready. I don't want to have to worry about what I look like. And I had so many people that were like, you have this energy about you that people need to see, right? And that is one of the reasons that now the podcast, like we are doing something with this video and it's coming in short form and long form, however you decide, right? And audio. But it goes back to there's so much noise
Mhm.
in the world. I don't care if you are in the corporate world, if you are working for someone else, or if you're an entrepreneur. Like there's all these shoulds around us of what we should
Right.
be doing, right? Take the quiz, figure out what your personality is, and lean into that. And don't listen to all this other stuff,
Right.
right?
Just be yourself.
Leverage it. And that is really where I see so many of us, like we need to step into that because that is where the ease and the joy and, not being burnt out is going to come from.
Right. Right. And, with the quiz, so there's the 5 content personality types: live in person, audio, video, visual, written. We had the founder, Shannon Hernandez, my business partner, who found this quiz. She found it before the internet, so she used to have it on a piece of paper. Just imagine, like, when we were teenagers or younger girls looking through the magazine and taking that quiz and like marking it up
Yeah.
on what house are we going to live in, right? So when I imagine Shannon doing this is how I imagine it. Like she's doing the quiz and the quiz keeps coming back live in person. One, she's super introverted. So she was like, no way is this thing right. She crumpled it up, kept throwing it across the room. She kept thinking she was written. She had written a book at that point. One of her masters is like in written, and so now I can't think of the English. And so she was teaching English to students when she was a teacher. A lot of the things that she was doing early in her business was like writing blogs for people and things along those lines. And then she was teaching people how to write. So she really thought written, but
Yeah.
she kept scoring live in person. So what we figured out is when you tap into that content personality type and you figure out your way of executing the content personality type. She grew her business to like a 250K a year business using her written pieces. That's nothing to bat an eye about. But when we really challenged her to step back from the written piece and figure out what her live in person was, she doubled her business in a year. And her live in person is teaching, small group teaching. And that's where it started. She would do it
Wow.
either in person in New Jersey. Zoom was, kind of starting around by the time she really doubled down and embraced this. So she was teaching on Zoom. And then she got more and more comfortable to where she started teaching on stages, which is how I met her. I hired her to come speak at a conference. And so my live in person, though, I'm very extroverted. I will walk into a room and come out with friends. Like I'm a people person every which way, but my live in person interactions are super duper different than Shannon's because no two live in person people or no two written people are going to be the same. And I think a lot of times, again, we're pushed and almost forced into this other content personality type because other people say it's worked well for them. It should work well for you, or you're a people person, or you're more shy, or you're really great on the phone. What is it that you really are? You've got to ask yourself those questions and double down on it. So knowing that you got the video content personality type, that means that you don't necessarily need the energy of another person to explain something really well so that we can enroll in your vision with you. You can explain it all by yourself, but also your energy shows up so well on video that it's really smart for you to be doubling down and utilizing this video recording and reels and putting it out on YouTube. So it's how can you 10x what you're currently doing and make it better? You're thinking through that. And we often get stuck on, well, it needs to be perfect. I don't want to put my hair together or do my makeup or whatever. So again, build that flow for you. Knock all your video stuff out on one day, and
Mhm.
then the other days of the week be your PJs.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, permission for everyone listening to do it the way it feels good to you, right? Throw away what everyone is telling you and really lean into what feels good to you, because that is where we all need to tap into more. And I know my experience in the corporate world was that I didn't, right? Like I was listening to my mind, I was listening to everyone around me and not following my intuition, my gut feeling, whatever that is. Like you need to lean into what feels good for you.
Yeah. And I think if you're listening and you're like, God, I don't even know what feels good to me anymore, then it is smart to have a conversation, take this quiz, and experiment with it, because you're not going to know until you actually experience it. And so if you experience something and you're like, that was horrible, that's okay. You don't have to do it again, right? Let's try something new. So there's like 152 ways, I think, for content creation and like social media platforms and combinations and stuff like that. When you figure out your content personality type, it boils it down to like 20 to 30 different ways. I think it's way easier to choose from a menu of 20 to 30 than 152. So
Yeah.
one, let's take that overwhelm out of play. But even in that 20 to 30, you're probably actually going to intuitively know that you're only going to like half of those. And so if you approach it as a playful experiment to get to know yourself better, to really understand what you do and don't like, that is such a different approach than saying, I have to pick one and I have to do it perfectly. So we're giving you permission, no more perfect, experiment. And if it fails, it fails. If it flies, it flies.
Mhm. Perfect. Perfect. So, I want to couple this with if if this conversation is making you a little uneasy or uncomfortable, right? Maybe you know that what you're doing every day isn't for you. I want you to start exploring, like, what is it that brings you joy and how do you start getting there? And I'm going to drop in the show notes a link to my ebook. It's Corporate Crossroads. Should I stay or should I leave? And this
Mhm.
will really help you feel into like that career aspect too, right? And these are some things as you go through it, like put in there. It's the ebook is very much a workbook and interactive and something for you to be able to dig into. But I want you to come from a place of like, where is my joy? And be thinking of the joyful you when you're going through it. So, um, also, Amy brought up her I love this summer camp. The whole concept of a summer camp for adults is like amazing to me. So, I just challenge you if you are someone that's like constantly in this personal development like roller coaster, so to speak. And to you, like building your business, so I have to go to something that's personal development. Like this sounds so fun, even though you're not necessarily working on your business or your career there. You're like tapping into like all the personal items that we're not hitting on all the time.
Right. Because we get so wrapped up that we have to like focus on these professional, these business things. And that's the way life is we
Yeah.
have to grow in those areas. And if we can give that the back burner for a couple of days, curious to see what shift and changes for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And if you're like, gosh, there's no way, I've never done this before, it's only 2.5 days.
Yeah.
No one's gonna die.
You're worth it. Like you are worth taking that time to experience something different.
Yeah. And I really believe, again, different is better. Better is better. And so when you think about how can I be different and be better. And what is that definition for me? That's going to be the shift in thinking instead of letting other people tell you what is better and what you should and shouldn't be and how you should and shouldn't do. When you can answer those questions yourself, that's where you're really thriving. Otherwise, I just feel like we're kind of coasting along doing this.
Yeah. I'm reading a book right now, and one of the chapters, there's a quote in the beginning, and it's like, "You're not crazy, you're just first."
Mhm.
And that really hit home to me because I think so many of us at times, like, we have these hopes and these dreams. And when we try to step into it, right, the world, the people around us think that we're crazy because we're doing something different than what they've done.
Right.
And at times, people, we go back to our comfort zone or we go back to what people are telling us we need to do and not being the first. And it's like, what is your first, right? Is it leaning into what Amy's saying, like leaning into joy, leaning into challenging maybe the systems on your team to where then everyone could be doing something that makes them joyful?
Yeah. Just imagine the shift in I just let's think grand scale, y'all. Like, imagine the shift in your career. If you were able to approach the work that your team does from that place of joy and from that place of enjoying, and how that would shift how your career is going and how you're going as an individual, how you come home after your day and talk about it with your children and with your spouse or with your cat. Really, it is. It's crazy to think. And the book that Shannon wrote is called Practical Joy. So if any of you are interested in even just scratching the surface of it, and Joy Camp just seems too much for you right now, give it a shot and really, really see, like, yo, when you look at how many years we have left in this life to live, one, we're never guaranteed them. And so I always say, don't you want to go out joyful?
Mm.
No one wants to go out grumpy and hating it.
Yes. Yeah. Amy, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me and going down this very windy path of all of the things. But I think if you didn't get the overarching message of, or overarching message of today, I don't even think I'm saying the right words at this point. Tap into your strength, lead with joy, and see what shifts in your life.
Mhm. Thank you.
Thank
Guys,
you.
check out the show notes and please, please, please take this quiz and pass this on to anyone that you feel could benefit from it. Maybe it's somebody leading your organization. Never know. So, are you ready to start your own corporate detox journey? Well, if you are, make sure that you check out amandamcwhorter.net for different ways to work with me, as well as some freebies that could help you get started. If you're on social media, follow me at Amanda K. McWhorter on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram.